So based on this play and where the ball's coming in from, the third base coach does a great job of positioning himself in the vision of his runner. He doesn't have to stay in that box, right? He's not in the play, but he does a great job positioning himself in front of the runner so the runner can see him. And what we see a lot at the youth level is most third base coaches stay in that box relatively even to third base. So you got to think, if he rounds the bag and there's no chance for him to score, based on the positioning of this base coach, he has the ability to throw up a late stop sign and get him to return or retreat back to third base if that throw is actually on line to home.
And I love how
he's in a position to score. So he does a great job from the coaching side too. But it's a huge play of just running hard and making the defense make a play. The throw went to the wrong spot, and he capitalized on it.
And I love how far off big, fat, slow Hosmer is from first base. Like he's rounding first base hard on a single to potentially get to second base based on he's usually probably expecting this throw's supposed to go home, or to make sure that he doesn't go, the go-ahead run doesn't score, So he's rounding it hard and maybe preparation for that to maybe take that extra bag and then put another guy in a scoring position. So he's all the way out here.
And you can see based on, it wasn't a close play, but based on if they would have lined that throw up home, there was no chance for him to score, right? If that throw was in line the entire time, it wasn't going to happen. But the misdirection of the ball allowed him to do it. So same thing happened a couple of years later with Altuve scoring from first on a single from Springer when the Astros won the World Series. So crazy that these plays come up even at the major league level. But it's our job as base runners to get the right read, right? So if he didn't check outfield, he wouldn't have gotten that quick read off the bat. So really cool to look at how important base running can be even at a high level. But if you know anything about this Royals team, they took a lot of pride in their base running, right? Mm-hmm. They had a fast team. Terrence Gore was on that team. They had Gerard Dyson on that team, and he is off at contact, right? So slight peek back, but he knew based on positioning that there was no reason for him to stop. And that coach is all the way down there in a position where Kane can see him, and he's sending eye contact. Yep, and he's sending him that whole time. There's no reason to hold him up there. So really cool play to see.
How far off he is, Hosmer.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a cool play to talk through, and it does bring us into base coaching a little bit and just how to practice some of that. So, I'd like to go through a couple drills here that I shared in the sheet or in the chat to talk through as well. But let me share my screen real quick. So there's three main drills that we do. And again, this is all base running, not base stealing. So we have different drills for base stealing that we go through. But when we're talking base running, the first drill that we do is called cycle drill. So we do this at the end of a practice. We use it for our conditioning, but every player starts at home. And they're going home to first on a ground ball. Okay, so they're going to swing a bat. They're going to drop the bat. They're going to take off. Our absolutes there, they're going to peek to find the ball. They're going to get through the bag, break down, looking over right shoulder. If they don't do that, they go back. Okay, then we go first to third on a read, really focusing on them touching the inside part of the bag and sliding into third. They go third to home on a tag up. And when they do that, we make sure, this is vital, that they are looking at the ball in the outfield. Okay, so they can visualize that. We have them look wherever and they go on a clap. But the key is that they're not staring at you as the third base coach for two reasons. One, the amount of time that it takes for you to say go and for their brain to process that and take off is slower than them looking at the ball. But two, they're not able to be manipulated by a defender like they can if they're staring at the coach and not the ball. Okay, true story. University of Louisville does this, and they talked about this at a clinic. But if they ever have a runner against them at third base on a tag play that's staring at their coach, couple second or like a second, half second before the outfielder catches the ball, their third baseman leans in and yells "go" at the runner to try to get him to take off, right? Because if they're not going to watch the ball, they're just listening for somebody to say go. Why has it got to be the coach? Let's tell them when to go, right? So the ability to always know where the ball is continues to come back. So we focus that there. And then we go home to second, but rather than doing it as a double, we do it in the way that Ronnie talked about. We're hitting a single, we're getting a big turn, and we're visualizing a bobble and then taking the bag. We go second to home with the slide, home to third, walking lead to steal home, or we go walking lead going on contact to where we'll simulate contact and they take off and slide. And then the last one, we go home to home. If it's been a really good practice, then we give them the opportunity to have some fun. They get to pimp their home run, bat flip, and jog around the bases. If it wasn't a good day, then that's an inside the park home run because they're exhausted by this point. So you just make them run a little bit. So that's an easy one to get through. Crack the bat is really, really important for that video that we just saw because this is your opportunity with base coaches to practice the base running aspect and communication with them. All right, so whatever verbiage you're going to use, we go through 5 different sets. And you don't have to do all 5 every day. You can mix it up. But we'll have a coach with 2 fungos, and they'll crack the bat. We always have a hitter, and then we place runners on different places. So you as a coach have the ability to send runners, to hold runners, to tell runners to slide. But it's a huge communication drill so that players get comfortable with how you coach the bases. You can practice your positioning on all of these plays of if someone's going home or there's a play at third or anything like that. So you can go anywhere from 5 minutes to 15, 20, but it's a good way to practice with the base coaches. And then the third one, I love this. We just started doing this last year. And Ronnie talked about it a little bit, but we do a double-only sim game. So we'll run sim games almost every practice, but players are not allowed to stop at first base. So if they hit the ball in the outfield, they're trying to get second, and they're probably going to get out. You're going to make some ugly outs, but it forces pressure on the defense, and it gives you as a coach a really cool opportunity to talk through what pressure can do to somebody. So this doubles-only sim game is a really cool idea that we were about to implement this year, and then we got shut down, but definitely something that we'll put in the future. So a really good drill there. But those are just a couple that we do. There's a million base running drills that you can do. Let's see. Let's stop screen share. So there's a lot of different things there that you can do, but all of those, I think, we struggle as base coaches because they struggle to hear exactly what we're telling them, and they're trying to visually see you and listen to what you're saying. So positioning becomes really, really important, and consistent positioning becomes really important as a base coach. For instance, if a guy's coming to third, as a third base coach, if that throw's coming, you need to position yourself on the side of the bag that you want them to slide and tell them down, right? But if you're standing in the same spot just pointing, it's harder for them visually to see that quickly as compared to if you actually move the position of your own body. So there's a lot of different ways to manipulate it and help everybody out. But I think those are some of the big things from the base coaching side from third is just positioning yourself where people can see you and where the play is going to be. Because you want to buy yourself as much time as possible before you tell them what to do. So they need to be able to see you through that rather than saying even with third and then you're telling them to go and they go and then you're trying to hold them, but they don't see you anymore. So just make sure you're buying yourself space and time. But yeah.
Yeah, these are great drills, Jake. And Adam, are you going to hop in there? Did you have something?
Yeah, I saw Ben's question on here, and I'm glad Nate popped in here because I was going to jump on that a little bit and talk about the perspective of being behind the bag versus even with the front of the bag.
Yeah.
But I think Nate can answer that a little bit better than me. Hey, Nate, can you see the chat, or you want me to read Ben's question here for you?
Read it for me. I'm kind of looking at all the guys here.
You're good. So it says, what's up, guys? General philosophy regarding location of a runner's lead from first. I teach even with the with the back corner of the bag, but I have seen coaches teach being behind the bag, with the theory being that the runner has a better angle for first to third. Maybe a better question for tomorrow. And then he also mentions and talks about the perceived location of the runner based if you're a little perception based if the pit from the pitcher based if you're a little bit further up. So if you want to just touch on that, you can probably speak to it a little better than we can.
To answer that question, that's kind of going to go into tomorrow's discussion on how to even get a leadoff, because we run 2 to 3 different styles of leadoffs, and I would fair to say 90% of the time we're in a modern league where we're only 6 feet off. So I'll be honest, I don't really care because we're only 6 feet off. Perception is already the fact that we're only 3 feet. So I'm really not gonna.
So where most of these people are probably in a traditional where they're 10 to 12. Like
traditional 10
to 12.
Traditional 10 to 12. I'm going off the front of the bag. Yes.
Okay.
We've got to have we do have to have a little bit of I guess, that buffer to look like we are a little closer than, being back behind the bag at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and Nate will probably talk about some of this tomorrow with base stealing stuff, and the other guys will touch on it, but some of it has to do with what you're actually doing with that runner. So when you understand your runners, then you're going to have guys that you're not going to steal, but they're going to be high attention guys on purpose, to where you want them to look farther off. You want the pitcher to be worried about them. So you're going to put them on the backside to look farther away to hopefully draw more throws. Some of your guys that are actually going to steal bases, you're going to want to be low attention guys. You don't want them to draw any attention to themselves until they've taken that bag. So they're going to be more on that front side. So some of that's team philosophy and what you're doing with them. But I would say, the perception is if you're on the front of the bag, you look closer to the bag to the pitcher. The farther back you are, you look farther away to the pitcher. So if you're trying to get attention and draw throws, back half, if you're trying to either be stationary, not draw a throw, or be low attention to steal the bag, then front half would be the right option. So there's a lot that goes into that, and I don't know if there's a perfect right answer. That's what we do system-wise, but I think as long as the players know what your expectation is, it's not going to make a huge difference. Second to third, it does, and I know Austin's going to talk through what he does leadoffs there, so we can talk through that and what we do, but we care more of positioning in comparison to the bag at second than we do at first.
Real quick to touch on what Jake went on for guys being high attention guys. Like for us, our top 3-4 guys, they're quiet. I mean, they don't look like they're going anywhere. And before you know it, they have second and third. And then you've got our guys that are in, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, that we're like, okay, all we want you to do is bounce around. Look like you're going nuts over there, because then the pitcher's going to get used to seeing, some sort of motion over there. By the time we get back around to our 9, 1, 2, 3 guy, we're back to looking lazy and taking banks. So it's definitely nice to have those guys to be able to be decoys to jump around, and they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
So the way that I had described that to some of our base runners as well is that, like, we want the pitcher thinking about you as a base runner without you necessarily putting yourself at risk of getting out. It's, the lead and the location of the lead and the distance of the lead has to be enough to where the pitcher is going to want to try to do some pickoffs moves, but you're not putting yourself in danger of getting out. And that's where practicing this on a regular basis is important, because if you want to start being aggressive on the base paths, you have to practice it. Otherwise, you're more of a danger to yourself than you are an actual help. So we talk to guys about, hey, get some attention over here, draw some throws, kind of annoy them a little bit, annoy them to the point to where they realize, okay, they can't get you out. And sooner or later, that coach is going to say the old, hey, don't worry about him, get the hitter. And as soon as he does, that's when we got the next bag, because now they're trying to forget about us. But you're throwing them off of their rhythm and putting pressure on them and creating a transfer of the ball from hand to hand, from different person to different person. And that, creates pressure. It takes the pitcher off of his approach towards the hitter, and sooner or later creates errors, or sooner or later just creates those free bags. So it's being dangerous to the other team without being dangerous to yourself. And that takes practice.
Yep. And a lot of it too comes from your comfort level with whoever's coaching first base. Like for me in travel, Adam's my first base coach. In high school, Nate's my first base coach. So I have really good guys over there that know the system to where they can talk to the runner at first. And really all my job is give a sign to the hitter and tell you whether or not to stay or go on a play at the plate. And that's really it. First base coach is handling everything else. So there are some coaches that prefer to be at first because they can talk through, especially if you're using a green light system. And most of our guys are on a green light system. We don't try to slow them up unless they're consistently making mistakes. So that goes on your first base coach, of open communication with them and really empowering them to do their job over there. I mean, otherwise all you're doing is yelling back as a first base coach or telling somebody to go. And those are plays that's really on the player anyway. So allow that first base coach to really coach. I think that goes a long way with your ability to take bases.
This is the beautiful thing about baseball, is that there's so many philosophies and there's so many different ways to do things that we can get creative with it. And there's no real cookie cutter way to do one exact thing. Like maybe something works for you guys that works differently for Ronnie, that works differently for Tom, that works differently for myself. I think that's the best part about this. And that's what we get to learn is, hey, let's pick and choose what works for us. Like what maybe registers with us. Hey, I like to take my lead here. I like to cause this on the bases. But some of the things that we've got to really preach is running the bases hard, being aggressive, forcing them to make outs. And you talk about the Lorenzo Cain. Well, that's in the big leagues. Well, it happened in college for me as well. We had a kid named Cal Stevenson. He was a freshman at the time. So that freaking having balls as a freshman to do this, the best base runner I've ever seen. And he's with, I think he's in the Blue Jays now, IAA, something like that. And just a great kid. And so he's on first base and I hit a base hit to left center and I'm rounding the bag. And as I look up, he's rounding third going home, just like Lorenzo Cain. I'm like, whoa, what? And as a hitter behind him, I'm like, I just got an RBI on a base hit with a runner on first base. That's the coolest thing in the world. Like,
that's
I'm fired up. Dude, didn't stop, but he knew where his outfielders were. He knew the infielder's arms because the shortstop didn't have a good arm, and he knew he wasn't accurate. So he knew that he could test the waters a little bit, and he trusted in himself and his speed and his angles around the bases, which I'm sure we'll get into tomorrow as well, to get to home without having to getting home safely, 100%. Early in the game, putting the pressure on him. So that was huge. But I want to hit on the fact of first base leads, and like we said, there's no perfect way to do it. But the reason why I like to take the lead from the back part of the bag, that back corner, is because second base is about a half a foot further back towards the outfield. So if you're looking at first base like this, if I'm running in a straight line, second base is about a half a foot back. So when I dive back into first base, our first priority, like when I dive back to first base, I'm going to reach the outside part of the bag. We all know that. But the second thing is when I steal to second base, I'm giving myself the best opportunity to slide to the back part of the bag, make that catcher or the infielders make a little bit, maybe more pressure on him, or hopefully that split second, that extra inch of the tag that he's trying to tag me out on to get there. I just wanted to throw that in there just because, I mean, we learned that. I didn't know that the bag was a half a foot back. I had no clue until like 2 years ago, and our coach mentioned that. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, that's weird. And we walked it off, and I'm like, you're lying, dude. You're lying. And we did it, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. So just understanding that. But I want to touch on the fact of, like, coaching leads at second base.
Yep.
And second base leads are it's a big topic because I've seen athletes at second base stand where the shortstop is. I've seen athletes stand in where the infield grass is, and I've seen them stand even with the bag. And I've seen it all. It seems like. And something at least with 2 outs that I wanted to hit on was a lot of the times we say, hey, 2 outs, two outs or whatever, you got 2 outs, you're on second base, get back, right? Take like 5 steps back. And I hate that. And here's why. Because one, you're further away from second base. We had a kid on our team get picked off because he went back towards the shortstop. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? We talked about this in practice for 2 months. This is why you got to continue to reiterate it with your athletes because sometimes it just doesn't register. And you're taking the bag. So if this is second base right here and third base is in front where my fingers are, like my athlete's back here. This is a long ways to go back to the bag. And I haven't created much distance towards third base. I haven't created much distance. If I'm going, you can't really see it well, but if I'm back here, way back towards the outfield, I'm not giving myself very much distance to third base, and I'm still the same amount of feet off of second base. But if I'm more in the baseline, maybe 1 step off the bag, 1 step back towards the outfield, and then take my lead, I'm more in line with third base. I have the same amount of feet distance-wise, if you measure it off from toe to toe, and I'm closer to third base. Ball in dirt, I'm there quicker. Base it to right field, center field, left field, boom, I'm there quicker. Slow roll to third base, I'm rounding the bag, I'm there quicker. So for me, like, and this go any way. Whatever your guys' philosophy, maybe it's totally different. But in my youth days and going through high school and even in college, we were always taught, hey, get deep, take 4 or 5 steps back and get really deep to create your angle. Well, why don't we trust our athletes to create the angle themselves by taking 1 step back? That's still enough space to create a good angle around third base to hit the inside part of the bag and be up in the line to give myself good direction to home plate on a base hit. And that's something I just want to throw that out there because I see a lot of athletes and I see a lot of teams and whether it's from the coach or whether it's from the athlete specifically, taking these super deep leads at second base with 2 outs, but you're pulling yourself further away from third base and from home. So if your objective is to score, we want to be closer. And I learned this from Joe Youngblood. So some of you may know Joe Youngblood. He put on the great red machine or whatever it was back in the day. The dude was freaking crazy, but he was an awesome base running coordinator for us with the D-backs. And he told us, hey, look, we want to be closer to the base so that we can still create that good angle, closer to third base, closer to home. We're going to score more runs that way. it makes more sense for us as a team. And maybe that's team philosophy or program, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I'm really excited to hear kind of what your philosophy is and objective.
Byler, I'll give this one my first thought. I love it for certain guys, but you got to remember, we're at the high school level. I do not want my 7, 8, 9 guy actually having to think like, oh, I have to get around, I have to create this path. You know, my 1, 2, 3 guy, yeah, they can get back in the base path, have a straight line, create it. I trust those guys 100%. When you get down to 7, 8, 9, who for us was looking like was going to be a set of freshmen, I really don't want them having to think, oh, I have to create this line on top of the fact I'm a freshman, breathe, because I don't know what's really going on. So for me, I like those guys being 5 feet back just because it's, hey, take this straight line. It'll put you directly in line with making a good pass. So I think for us, it's kind of by who our athlete is. And with how much we do base running, I talk to base runners every single day for at least 30 minutes. So they know who they are, who can go straight at the base, create that path for themselves, and who needs this 5 feet, you know, this extra 5 feet back.
Yeah. What we teach systematically is we have 2 different leads from second. We call them 55 and 75. Okay, so 55 is essentially 5 feet or 5 steps behind the bag and then 5 off. And that's if they're not a trail runner, there's not 2 outs. Because from that distance, what it does in our eyes is it forces your shortstop to make a decision of if at the young age, especially if he's going to play in front, which a lot of them choose to do, which isn't the right decision, or stay behind and keep depth. And if he's tight and keeps his depth, there's a lot of room in that 5-6 hole for them to sneak a single in there, but we don't stay there. So the big thing we work on is angling our steps back to an even spot where we're even between second and third to either steal the bag or take off at contact. And that path stays the same. So the other lead we do is trail runner or 2 outs, and that's 75. So it's essentially 2 steps deeper in depth, and their foot pattern is the same of working back, but it allows them to keep a little bit of depth for an easier turn at third. But it's not like a huge stand near the outfield, get depth because you're unable to turn your body and score. It ends up, they start deep, but they end up being just a few steps behind that baseline is what we typically do. But I agree. I mean, we want them to be as close to the baseline as possible. And honestly, if we had more time and could personalize it a little bit more, we do some running lane stuff from home to first of like speed and their ability to turn. We would love to implement that at second too. Like if you have the closest running lane possible because you're fast and you can get your shoulders turned, you can do that, then there's no need to have depth. But a lot of players at the high school and youth level, unfortunately, need it in order to get that turn without taking a huge wide angle as they round third. So that's kind of what we do.
You know, you make a really good point, both of you guys, about, hey, the athlete specific, which I like that. And it's usually a team philosophy. And if you don't buy into the team philosophy, we're not going to have you play. That's usually just how teams do it. But for you guys, like empowering your athletes to, hey, maybe you're a little slower guy and you can't turn your shoulders as well towards home plate and you can't hit that angle as well. And you need the extra couple of steps. But maybe you're a quick dude who's athletic and plays football and basketball and can really cut the corner, and you can only take 1 or 2 steps behind the bag and you can still cut that corner. Because go
ahead, Byler.
No, you're good.
I mean, there is philosophy behind it, and it is, you do have to play by our way. We're just so comfortable with our guys that we're open with them. If basically the philosophy is know your role. My 1-2 guy knows he can get back in the base path, and he's still going to make a hell of a turn there. You've got to be back here. So, I mean, there's still team philosophy, but it's know your role and be comfortable in your role.
Yep.
So I can't say it's not part of team philosophy. It's just basically player managed a little bit more.
And one thing with that philosophy wise, I shared the picture of the different types of players, right? Breaking down their role. So if you have guys that you've put in that base running category that are faster, maybe you teach them to not have that much depth, right? Like last year we had what we're the Falcons. We had Falcons and Penguins. And based on 60 time and ability to turn, that changed their depth on the bases and what kind of leads they got and all of that. So you do have the ability to kind of break that down within the team too, if that's something. It really comes down to if base running and stealing bases is something that your team is going to do, then there should be a system there. If you got a bunch of slow guys that are just out there to hit and your best option as a team is to not steal, then it's probably not necessary for you to put in. It's just team personnel, honestly, will play a big role in it. So
I really like that. No, I really like that. And if we're looking for other ideas of, hey, how can we cut the corners and cut that 90 feet and gain the competitive edge on the base pass, which wins a lot of games for a lot of good teams. And you usually see like the correlations with the Royals, the best teams run the bases the best.
Yep.
And you can stand there with a fungo in the middle of the bag at first base when they're doing their rounds or second or third to force them to hit the inside part of the bag. So if you're looking for other options that are creative when you're doing your base running work for whether it's 5 minutes or 15 or 30, however much time you allot to it, stand in the middle of the bag with your fungo on the middle of the bag, forcing them to hit the inside part of the bag. And if they don't, they might run into you, and that's an opportunity. Hey, maybe you throw a check at them, knock them out. But no, don't do that at all, please. But it just forces them to say, hey, okay, if I hit coach, he's going to freaking throw me out of practice. So I better hit the inside part of the bag because there's a body there that's in my way, and it's going to force me to cut that angle. I think that's another way to just cut down the angles.
Yeah.
Another creative way is if you have drop downs, which is something we were going to go to this
Nate, we're losing you.
year. I actually have them painted in the back of my truck right now. You got me?
Barely.
Shut up. You're kidding.
No, it's not great.
Paint the inner corner red of the bag.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that.
That way coach isn't standing there. We don't have any issues. They don't trip over coach and me sprain an ankle. Let's go with paint the inside of the bag. And that gives them a visual. Hey, Byler, I've got a guy 6'4", 240. I'm not standing in front of his big self. It's not happening. He's a big boy. I'm not standing there.
I respect it. Each team's different.
Oh my gosh.
But
hey,
no,
we did
paint the inside of that corner. That's a great visual for the guys.
Yeah. We did have a couple of questions come through as far as like coaching bases. So the first one from Steven was, and a lot of coaches fall into this, that you might not have a first base coach. You're the only coach that's out there. And I would do one of two things, and whichever one you choose, I would use some of those drills that we put in there to practice it. I personally, and I'm a third base coach, so I can't even say this out loud and admit it, but I think it's way easier to coach third than to coach first if you're doing it right. So it might be easier. It might be easier to teach the players, if you're going to have a player do it, the go and stay of coaching third and put in signs from first if you're going to run a lot of bases and steal a lot of bases. If you're not, then it's hard to do a green light when you don't have somebody over there talking to the players consistently about reads and what they see in the pitcher and all of that. So then I would just go to a straight steal sign and not open up a green light if you're the only coach and you're at third base. But I've seen coaches do it both ways. Michigan Blue Jays last year was a really good program. They had one coach, he was coaching first, and they were putting in signs and everything from there. So I know it's a little different. It's outside the box, but that's the route that I would personally take on that. And then the other question from Josh, by allowing the first base coach to coach his players at first, how do you go about communicating what he wants the runner? Does he have his own series of signs or just a way of communicating? So really simple from my end as a third base coach. We do one of two things. We either have a green light sign that we put in, or if we have a team that we like everybody can run, which would have been our high school this year, there's a stop sign. So everybody's green light unless I do a certain thing at third. And from there, I'll let Nate or Adam take over from first of their communication as a first base coach. At third, it's just, do you have the green light or not situationally? And the big thing as a first base coach is just actually like following that and not running yourself into outs. It's great to steal bags, but you also have to be aware of situations and all that too. So Nate or Adam, whoever wants to take that from the first side.
Adam, I'll let you go second because I have to hop off here because I got to where I'm at. Have something to handle here for a few minutes. Josh, for me, I'm a Jake and Adam can tell you I'm a different kind of coach. I'm very verbal. You're gonna know when you can steal. You're gonna know pitchers, catchers, timing, and I'm gonna say all of it right in front of the first baseman. I don't care. We're good enough, and this is kind of the arrogant side. We're good enough. I'm good enough at picking up a pitcher that I'm not worried about it. So I'm just gonna say it out loud. Now you have to be very comfortable with your guys. You have to practice this a lot with your guys to be able to get that comfortable. But that's where I am. I will tell him, I'm like, hey, catcher's a 2-2, pitcher's a 1-4. You've got it. Let's go get him. The pitcher or the first baseman will flat out yell, he's going. And, do they really believe him? No, they think we just got the first baseman bluffed when I probably verbally said, hey, he sucks. Let's go get him. And that's just kind of how reverse coming from third. I've been more for guys to know two different sets. That just makes it confusing. If you just hear me say, go get it, hey, you know your job.
Yep.
And then the last thing I'll say about that is whatever your philosophy is on base running and whatever your communication is, make sure that that's very clear and concise to your players. That way that they're not getting confused. We try to do a good job. We have a lot going on in the base paths as teams and as an organization. But what we try to do is we over communicate, but we limit the vocabulary that we use. And we have a very clear cut way of who's talking to who on the base paths as coaches and what we're actually saying. That way the players are as confused as little as possible when they're out there trying to execute the game plan that we have. So whether or not your game plan is to be aggressive or to not be necessarily aggressive or whatever you're doing, make sure you're having good discussions with your players of what it's going to be, not just your physical signs, but what your verbal communication is going to be, especially when they're at second base. And especially when they're at second base and there's more than one base runner on the base paths. I mean, I think when Jake and I first started coaching, we were both probably talking to the second baseman, just because we didn't know, we weren't educated on, we weren't disciplined. Now we know who's talking to who, when, and that the players know who they're supposed to pick up their communication from, and that they can always just have their eyes fixated on the pitcher where it's supposed to be. They know where the ball's at, and then they can just listen to the person that they're supposed to listen to. So just over communicate, keep that vocabulary limited, don't add in different words all the time. Let them know what exactly they're supposed to hear and let them know who they're supposed to talk to. And that way you guys are more prepared and you're not, like I said, being more dangerous to yourself on the base paths than what you are being dangerous to the people on defense. So just work on those things and you won't get it right the first time. You'll try new things, you'll try new verbiage, and people will get confused or whatever. But over time, you'll pick up on that. And as long as you practice it on a regular day at your practices and make that a priority, it'll work for you when you're out there in game time.
Yep. And Josh, the last thing real quick on it that I'll say, if the system of you verbally stating that it doesn't work for you, like your kids or your group, I've seen first base coaches just go fist open or fist closed system. So you might tell them every pitch, hey, we're going to take the bag this pitch. We're going to take the bag this pitch. And if fist is open, then they're actually going. If it's closed, there's nothing on. So that just gives them something visually to look at, and it's a really simple sign. That way you can say whatever the heck you want, and the first baseman is very confused. So that's another option for you too. But, yeah, that's all I got.
Nice. No, this is huge. This is great insight, just different philosophies, different ideas, different things that we could take in. Maybe something popped up and sparked another idea that we have just as far as how we're going to implement this to our programs and to our teams. And I know I learned a lot just of what you guys are doing there in Indiana and like different ideas, different tactics, different things. Nate coming in hot, like loving it. I love it. Just being
That's the only way he comes in.
I love it, man. I'm excited to meet him in person, man. It's going to fire me up, but I'm fired up for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be huge. So if you have any coaches that want to join, if you have any buddies that want to join, feel free to bring them on. We're going no kids, no athletes, strictly coaches. And if you're a parent, I guess you can join in too. I don't really know. It's fine with me. I don't care. There's just no athletes in it, just to make sure that we avoid any drawing on screens and anything crazy like that. But same time, 2 p.m., it'll probably be 2 hours. I don't know how long they're going to go. Yeah. Who knows? We're just going to be here with the notepad, just taking it in. So I'm excited to discuss some of the things that we'll be going into tomorrow. But thank you guys. And remember, tomorrow, Full Uni Friday. So if you do have athletes in the athlete group, encourage them to bring their full unis. We're sending them a hat. And we're going to send some swag out there and just fire them up too. It's going to be really cool. So chains, extra swag points, stirrups, automatic win. I'm
Absolutely.
done. See you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys again.
Byler, can you leave this open for me and Ronnie?
I've got to host another meeting here.
Okay.
Right
We'll
now,
figure something else out.
Yeah, it's gonna make me end it. I'm sorry.
You're good. All right. See you guys.
All right, later, guys.